Hey now, and how are you doing? Want to welcome you to the next episode of Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat, man. We're gonna have a lot of fun today in the green room. We just had a great conversation with my new friend Massimo. So I can't wait to talk to you about him because we're gonna learn a little bit about recovery, man. You know how important that is to me, about how high achieving professionals, how we battle things. I mean, I remember. I'll tell a story later, but also how we cope with life. Because it's not just about career, it's life. That work-life balance everybody talks about, but it's so hard to do healthy. And that's one of the things that I love talking about because that's the type of executives I work with. So let's go start into the episode. How you doing today, Massimo?
Hey, I'm fantastic, Dave. Thanks for asking and thanks for having me here today. I'm really excited to talk to you.
All right, well, I'm excited as well. Definitely a topic that I'm really involved in heavily. Now, before we start, why don't you just introduce yourself a little bit and then we'll get started.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Massimo Rigotti, and I have a background as an entrepreneur. And that included starting companies in multiple sectors from tech, banking, entertainment, publishing, printing, you name it, I was there for it. And at the very beginnings of the internet, those tech startups were really fun. But along the way, I picked up this fantastic habit we call drinking. And then
Mm.
eventually I added the cocaine sidecar, as I often call it. And then life just started unraveling. And it unraveled to the point of losing everything. And this is where the country song comes in, where, I lost my house, my wife, my cars, my everything that I had, and my business was gone. And I found myself living on the street in Kansas City in 2015.
Mm.
And 16 months later, I stood up sober in March of 2016. Been sober
Hey,
since.
woo,
So 10 years under my belt. And it's
100%.
been a rocket ship back to the top. And that is primarily because the tools that I had were there the whole time, but that performative mask that I had put on for so many years, I finally decided to take off. So now I'm in Lincoln, Nebraska. I was originally born here, but as we talked off before we started here, is that I've lived all over this great country and from coast to coast, east, west, north, and south. And it has been really incredible to make so many friends across the land. And I say all that with the excitement of just celebrating the 250th. That is really kind of a great time to be alive.
100%. I do think, well, any day is a good day to be alive. Well, and I'm glad because I just also don't want to let that go. 10 years of being sober, that's warrior type work. And I don't use that word lightly in terms of it. I know how hard it is to get through recovery and to sustain it because it's not just, oh, I get through it. There's no finish line on it, but I'm glad that you have. And I've been in Lincoln, Nebraska. I have a friend that lives there. He's a college professor out there.
Sweet.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah,
Cool. Well, now I know that at some point
yeah.
you may come and visit.
100%. You'll never know when I'm knocking on your door. I'll give you a warning. Yeah, I will give you a warning. Now, okay, so a lot of times, and I want to try to help people understand a little bit about substance disease, in that, and everybody's different. So, were you was that a coping mechanism, or is it just like, hey man, we go to a party and this is what we do? Because I know a lot of people have experienced trauma and that's their coping mechanism, right? To do that. Whatever you're willing to share, of course.
Oh, absolutely. I'm an open book. I tell the whole story. Well, I would start out by saying that when I initially realized I had this problem and was willing to admit it, then I was at a point where I had thought up until this moment that it had all been just the original, which is I'm going out, I'm 18 years old, and my business partner's 38. And it's like we're drinking to celebrate. And then
Mm.
the drinking becomes more frequent. And then it becomes drinks at lunch. And then before you know it, I was working in the entertainment business, and you're having mimosas at breakfast and drinks at lunch and drinks in the afternoon. And then you go to a party afterwards, you're back home at 2 in the morning, and then you're up and you're doing it again. Before you know it, you're drinking basically 19, 20 hours a day. You're always a little inebriated, and that's not healthy, right? And at the same time, you need to do the work. So then I added the fantastic upper alongside it, and that made life a little bit easier. but I was actually hiding from some trauma, some really deep trauma that was buried back in my early childhood that I didn't know existed. Well, I mean, I probably knew it existed on some level, yet I didn't. And so when I was in rehab, I was able to figure out that I had this deep fear of abandonment that was within me. And
Mm.
so the coping for this, and the reason that I leaned into alcohol so hard, being somebody that was this founder, the leading groups of people, is that in order to perform, I was constantly afraid that the people I had assembled around me were going to leave, and they were going to leave me and abandon me, and I was going to be left trying to hold everything together. And this comes out of my very beginnings in life. My mom separated from my father before I was born, and I didn't know my father until I was 21. But
Wow.
uh, the guy who I call my dad entered the picture when I was 3. He adopted me when I was 8. And in the courtroom, when I had to get up on the stand, and what a weird thing to make an 8-year-old do, I looked out and my father's not there and nobody's there. And so I left the courtroom that day thinking that I had just been left. Why doesn't he want me? I know what I'll do. If I just work hard enough, this person will love me. They will want
Mm.
me. And that doubled down on already a good stack of being capable and being smart, being somebody who was driven. Those traits already existed within me, but now it just accelerated all of that. And in
Mm.
order to keep that performance together, that's where the alcohol came in. Is
Mm.
that I had to keep that mask on. I had to show everybody that I had it together when I clearly didn't. And it's funny to me that I never saw that. It was a blind spot that was hidden my most of my life, all the way from 8 until 38 when I became sober. That was hidden.
Yeah, well, we don't know. I mean, right? But that's why it's a blind spot. I had something similar like that. Well, not with abandonment, but well, I guess it was. It turned out that was one of those things. I had a girlfriend when I was 20 who got killed by a drunk driver, and I was the last person to speak to her. But that didn't turn into alcoholism for me until I was there. And in fact, my first wife, both her parents were alcoholic, or are alcoholic, and how ironic is that? But when she died, the first girlfriend, uh, I didn't know I had survivor guilt. And when I during the pandemic, actually, I'm reading some old stuff, and I obviously moved on in many ways in life, but I started crying and uncontrollably crying, and you don't know what we have, and because we're not asked to confront it, and as an 8-year-old, where you felt you were abandoned, that's you know especially in that time, they're not going to kind of touchy feely. This is what you have to do. Sort of get over it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. In the 1980s, it was not touchy feely and the way that it would be today. What's going on? Are you okay? No, it was just like, all right, we got him adopted. Everything's good.
Yeah.
Never talked about it again, right? And oh my goodness, I am so sorry for your loss, and I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but that's a part of my story as well. So the
Oh, I didn't know
the
that.
yes, the Samantha who helped me find sobriety, who I met randomly. Um, and she truly saw me, and she was my wake up call.
Well, one minute.
She was
I
murdered
just
by a drunk driver in 2020.
okay. I just got huge chills. You said Samantha?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That
Yeah.
was my
Oh,
girlfriend's name. We called her
wow.
Sandy, but her name was Samantha, and that's why I was like, whoa, like that just shut like literally. I
Yeah.
I I
Wow.
I missed some of what you just said. I apologize.
No,
I,
no,
I
no. It's
you know
I feel your loss tremendously. I mean, like in ways that you I know that you understand
yeah,
because
yeah. Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
and I was sober at the point that this happened. But I mean, we get, this is all in the genesis of like how I created my method. So we can get into that in a minute or
yeah,
so.
yeah,
But
yeah. No, no, we're okay. I'm writing a book. So with Sandy, she had this premonition all along her whole life that she was going to die early, and she's like, "You got to read my diary," because we were like eight, we started dating at like 13, 12, 13, or some ridiculous number like that. And then she was gonna pass up going to Stanford for me. And I was like, dude, you're so smart. Like, think about that decision, like I mean, we were kids, and I was the last person to speak to her. That was why I had the survivor guilt. Is I was like, go to the party, man. You have like a 4.0 at Stanford. What the hell is wrong with you? So, and she was walking on the sidewalk, and everything happened.
I'm
Um,
so sorry.
yeah,
Wow.
well, thank you. Yeah, so you don't know, but now other than the fact that you said Samantha, I was like, what the, like,
Yeah.
that threw me off. I thought I had it all, and then you were like Samantha, and I was like, did I hear that right? Like, but yeah, but how we move through it, because we don't know how it affects our lives and all those things. And that's why having these conversations about, you know, addiction, and also I work really hard to make sure that we also speak about it as substance disease, no matter
Mhm.
what it is, versus, addiction and things like that, because we all are addicted. I mean, look, I've been addicted
Oh
to food my whole life. I mean, let's be honest, there weren't many, McDonald's or cheeseburgers that I missed in my life. Oh,
yeah.
but so no matter what you're doing, and you double down on some of those, uh, it was because of some of the traumas, and recognizing that is really powerful. To recognizing, you can see it now, at the beginning stages. What made you sort of hit that switch from going from somebody who's using substances to like, man, this has got to stop?
Well, I'm going to take you right into the story of meeting Samantha because
Sure, yeah.
this is really where that begins. In March of 2014, I was with a group of friends, and I rarely had gone on any trips. I knew the wheels were coming off my life. I'd already divorced at this point. My business was collapsing, but I just was like, okay, fine, I'll take a trip. So we go to Destin, Florida, and that afternoon, I randomly meet Samantha on the beach, and we end up going out that night. It was like just an instantaneous match, and I'm drinking. I don't remember what, and we're at this club, and she pulls me down to it, and into my ear she whispers, "You don't have to drink to be awesome. I see you." That's what she said to me.
Ooh,
And I was like, I met you like 4 hours ago. Like this is what's going through my head. Like what are you even talking about? But it hit me. And something about that hit me. And then the following day, and this plays in kind of interestingly into your story you were just telling. We went for a walk along the beach that following morning, and she stops me before we were about to part and like talked about meeting up later that day. She said, "Don't fall in love with me, Massimo, because I'm going to be dead before I'm 25."
phew.
I was like, "What?" It said, it said, "Well, I mean, you're crazy and too late. It's already happening." you know. Um, but her premonition was right. She ends up dying in August 1st of 2020, and just shy of her 25th birthday.
Wow.
And she had that premonition as well, and she was just determined. I mean, it was something that we talked about a lot in that first year of us interacting. It was something she brought up a lot. Well, you need to get it together because I'm not going to be here to take care of you. I'm like, okay, well, you're just
Yeah,
stop that. Stop
right,
talking about it.
right. And so I really understand what that was. Because like, again, as a kid, as a teenager, like her parents had brought her to therapy, and she's like, no, no, it just is sort of matter of fact. Like, I don't know when, but it's going to happen. I'm preparing you for it all.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the,
Yeah.
like we'd get into arguments at times about it. And,
Yeah.
I mean, we'd be, she wouldn't use it all the time. And like, what are you doing? In fact, for a long time after she passed, she came to me. I don't know if you believe in those things. She came to me, and there was a view I remember, and I don't share this. I don't think I've shared this on the podcast yet, which is really odd. But there was one day that she came to me, and there was she said there's a hole here for you, and I go, okay, and she goes, either get in or start living your life. And she goes,
Mhm.
you're not, you got to go out and do that. And I was like, all right. And I sort of started dating again. It was like 5 years. And, like
Yep.
core 20 years old, how many 20-year-olds really, I lost, not, and I don't feel I lost it. But the 5 years from like
Mhm.
20 to 25, I didn't do anything. I didn't go out. I didn't, leave me alone. Um, I talked about her often,
Yeah.
but I didn't go to therapy to help me through that. And so that's what I would want to ask you is when, that August 1st day in
Mhm.
2020, how'd you cope with that?
It hit me a like a brick wall. I'll never forget it because I was actually at lunch with another friend and I got a call and saying, Massimo, Samantha's been killed. And it was wild because the night before at about midnight when it actually happened, I had like sat up straight in bed and I just remember it because it was just like I was cold. I had a chill, and then I felt her presence there,
Mm,
and I was like, Sammy, is that you? And just like then it just went away. And so getting that call, it was that, oh man, that was real. And she's gone, like she said she was going to be gone. So that's real. And in that instant, I thought, ah, man, I should just order a drink. But I stopped. I stopped almost as quickly as that came because I had been sober at this point,
mm,
and I had already developed what is the sober method. She was about to graduate as a doctor, and we were planning on writing this book. She was going to bring the MD behind everything, and I was going to bring the raw life grit, and it was going to be a co-authored book. So I mean, like what I decided in that moment was no, I have to remain sober. That's what she would have wanted. And I am now her legacy. I am proof that she existed. I'm
mm.
proof, and I have to carry that on, and I have to carry on the things that she wanted. And so that's what I did. And I really doubled down my focus is it was going to be kind of some sort of side thing. And instead it's become my primary task is to put forth the sober method.
Okay, I want to hear about that. But one other thing that connection, again, I got chills when you said that she was going to be a doctor. Sa- Sandy was a nurse because her mother had been a nurse, and obviously she really should have been a doctor, right? Not that there's anything wrong with nurses. I honor them, but with her grades and everything like
Mhm.
that, and they were trying to talk to her. In fact, she had also. That's why I was like, oh my God, when you said doctor, I was like, she could have been an art major. Like, what are you talking about? Whew. Okay, so
Yeah, this
what?
is like honestly, I'm freaking out myself over on this side. I'm trying to hold it together because this is wild. I swear to the entire audience, Dave and I did not know this before this call. This is one of the wildest coincidences I've ever
Yeah, well,
experienced.
I guess I don't believe in accidents, and I also, I've been thinking about it a lot because I'm writing this book, which for me has been very healing. Maybe this is what I need to share with you in that I sit with her. So I'm writing Sandy's diary, and it's just
Mm.
times that I remember. I'm not necessarily including, personal stuff, and it's been interesting because I get to sit with her again because we knew our families knew each other, so it
Mhm.
was really something deep. So maybe that's an idea of a book. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about the sober method that you've created.
Yeah, absolutely. So SOBER stands for Stoic, Observe, Behavior, Execute, and Restore. And it works in a continuous improvement fashion. So the craziness that began this idea is that I was sitting alone with my thoughts and I thought, wait a second. If there's a way I could capture what I was thinking in a moment in time and see what was wrong with that thought, could I then, actively change it to something different and then execute on that so that over time I would do the new thing instead of the old thing? Well, I have news for you, everyone. You can do that, and that's how the sober method was formed. Is just exercising that time and time again. So the Stoic reflection of this is, of course, that deep piece of being able to truly understand yourself and what's driving you. And I think that if we don't take the time to really understand who we are and what we're driven by, we never really figure out who we are. And
Mm,
so many of us, I think, are told what we're interested in when we're at a young age and how we should experience life. And we often just kind of float through. I hate using that term, but it is kind of reality. We float through. It's like, well, my mom said I'd be a really good
yeah.
scientist or whatever it is, so that's what I am. Do you like science? No, I hate it. Always wanted to paint. Well, then why don't you paint? Like these are the things that we get stuck in. We get stuck in these thought loops, and then we hold ourselves there because it's too much for us to look at our identity and be willing to tear it all down.
Mm,
And I think that if you're continuing your life in a way that is growth and looking to new ideas and new ways to express yourself, then you're willing to also discard the things that maybe aren't beneficial to you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's why, when all the challenges I've had, I've done those deep dives, and it's the deep dives, and it's, while we can't change the past, and we're not going to change the story about the past. What the facts are the facts, but I can
Mhm.
change and take away some of the pains of the past, and put that together. And that's, one of the things that I teach. When I able to identify those triggers within ourselves to
Yeah.
kind of rewrite those misconceptions about how things happened or how I reacted. Why did I react that? That's when I dive in to myself. So what, there's plenty of stigmas around addiction and sobriety. What are some of those that you think need to be addressed?
That we're always an alcoholic or that we're always a drug addict. And I think that this begins with the treatment that so many of us go to or start with. Most of us begin our journey in AA or NA, and it's because it's widely available and that's what is put out there. It's a good starting point. Yet the underlying premise of both of these is that we introduce ourselves every time we go to a meeting as I'm an alcoholic. Hi, I'm Massimo, and I'm an alcoholic. Well, I can tell you that I was not allowed to return to any AA meetings because I refused to say that after 2 years because I didn't feel like I was an alcoholic. I wasn't thinking about it ever. And it is in all mental health, we use the positive affirmation of things, except in addiction. In addiction, we hold on to it. And when we hold on to something, that's going to manifest into it happening. It's going to manifest into relapse. And so that's one thing right out of the gate that we're hurting ourselves in the eyes of everyone else because when anyone thinks about AA, they know that that's the first thing that's said because it's in movies, it's played out. People know that. So when they find out that you've had substance abuse problems, they immediately think, oh, you always are going to have that problem. So if you go to get a job, oh, he's always going to want to drink. That stigma is difficult to get away from, and then that carries over into health records, which is quite unfortunate. I can tell you here, personal experience recently. I got a renewal on a term life policy that had a 25-year term on it, and so I got it at a time period when I was obviously much younger, but it comes up for renewal and the rate, I mean, I would expect it to be in line with what it should be for someone who's 50. Is it? No, it's sky high. So I call, and you know what they say? Well, I'm sorry, we don't really like to insure addicts. I'm like, I'll do any test you want. I'm not like, yeah, well, we have all of your medical information. I'm like, so you can't escape it. You're always that in the eyes
Well,
of the
and
medical
that's
world.
yeah, and that's where talking the stigmas. Like whenever you talk about substance abuse, substance disease, you get the spoon and the needle, and I'm like, no,
Yeah.
because like I grew up in Massapequa, and I know you're a little familiar with that. But
Mhm.
Massapequa, one of the reputations about Massapequa for a lot of years, it was the number one overdose death location in the country and
Mhm.
probably the world. I'm not sure about, but I know for a fact it was in the country, and it wasn't the heroin. It was the prescription medicine,
Yeah.
and that becomes completely different. And why, if we're labeling everybody, why don't we give them a nice label?
Yeah.
Yes, you made a mistake, right? We rush to put labels on, but the real answer is let's also, kind of celebrate the rewards. I mean, that's why I called you a warrior. I wasn't saying that just to try to be friendly with you. I know how hard it is. I've sat with people doing that, and it is not easy because the world is, right. I might disagree with you in that you're always an alcoholic. If you have to put a label on it, right, you're always going to have a challenge with alcohol, right.
Sure.
At any point, anything could happen.
Hmm.
100% guilty, yes, but that doesn't mean you an alcohol. You're not in active. You know, you're at. Again, when I've taught about recovery, it's the 5 years. After you get through 5 years, like cancer, right? You get through
Hmm.
5 years, you're in remission. You're in
Hmm.
remission. Why can't we talk about that as part of the recovery? And because there's so many people,
Yeah.
it's and all the people who are labeled like yourself because you decided to choose health over everything and it became on your medical records. There's a million people out there who it's never listed, right?
Yep.
So again, when I talk about I've had some mental health issues, so I'm a suicide survivor, and a lot of people go, oh, I'm like, I don't care that you judge me. I'm finally comfortable enough to be like, you don't know half the story, and that's okay. But the real truth of the matter is why do we keep the labels? And what are some of the things that you could think about to help us with the stigma, removing the stigma, or at least letting people know it's okay what others think, but not really who you are?
I think if you are capable, if you're going through the same thing that I went through, and things that you've gone through, it's taking each individual as an individual story and looking at everybody as who they are, not the grand view of what an addict is. Because it's like those labels are put on things in all areas, not just in addiction,
Right.
to try to classify people and try to pigeonhole them into to keep you down and to keep you in place. So, in order to rise up above that, don't mention it unless it comes up. I never mention it. I'll tell you what, some of the most interesting things that have happened to me over the last 5 years is when I am interacting with people and then they find out 6 months later my backstory,
Mm,
you know, because I've shown up and presented in such a way that they have no clue. And then they found out and they're like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. But I guarantee you, if they had found out within the first 10 minutes of knowing me that I had alcohol
right.
struggles, I never would have had the opportunity to do business with them or anything else. It's just the way that it is. And I think that we kind of have to fight fire with fire. Don't disclose unless it's something that you think is going to be a challenge with the individual you're working with. I mean, there's just no reason to say it.
Right. I mean, there's unconscious bias. I mean, no
Yes.
matter what, 100%. And, and then also be somebody like yourself who is knowledgeable. Okay, so let's have this conversation. If you have to have that conversation, what are some of those things that you might, because you've experienced it and been
Mhm.
influenced, right? People then talk about, productivity and the impact of things like that. But you want to know something? We also are dealing with a whole bunch of different things now with addiction, right? Devices. I have my phone, you have your phone, and why is
Yeah.
that not looked in the same way?
I think it is increasingly being looked that way. And I'm glad that you bring up the whole device thing because my third book is coming out here on the 23rd of July. It's Digital Sober Method. And this is about reclaiming your relationship with that device. Not it's an addiction.
Hmm.
I know that there are plenty of people addicted to TikTok. Now, I should look down on them as much as somebody who's addicted to alcohol, probably. I mean, if we're going to say all addiction is alike, but we can go back to the beginning and saying that we're all addicted to something. And that comes from fundamentally having something within our lives that we do not want to address. And digital sober method digs into this a lot more than the original sober method does because this requires you doing more work with your mind to understand what am I avoiding? You're avoiding something at that instant that you pick up and go to scroll something. It could be the person in front of you, because I'm always disappointed when I see this. Two people out for dinner and they're both on their phones. It's like, do you know how much limited time you have with the people that you love in this life? And of course, I'm speaking from experience. You're speaking from the same experience. You do not want to waste 1 second because it could be gone and then you will never be able to talk to them again. And so being present is so important. So, but you went to that device for a reason and thinking about why that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the question is why, if you're going on there to look at Facebook or fake book, right?
Yeah.
But that's really where we need to have those bigger conversations, because why are we chasing the likes and things like that versus, just putting it out there, putting out, like if you're putting out information, if you're running a business
Mhm.
only on Facebook, I get it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But again, there's times you have to put you put it away. You have to separate and what's more important.
Yeah, it's cheap dopamine. I mean, it's really easy to see. I mean, food addiction is very similar to this. I mean, sugar is cheap. You look at the reward for sugar high, it's almost identical to cocaine. People don't like hearing that, but it's the truth.
One hundred
So you
percent. It's funny. So I think I shared with you in the green room about my health, my heart, and
Mhm.
I just went back for a checkup, and they're like, you really did lose, reduce weight, and I go, yeah, I changed my diet. When I told you in the hospital, there's nobody believed me. When they were like, you have to
Mhm.
change your diet, I go, done, and I was serious about it, and in the 2 months, 17 pounds,
Good for you.
and as well as added some muscle. So it's not all just reduction.
Yeah,
That's
that's
where they all.
fantastic.
Thank you. But that's where a lot of people and people who used substances. So I used food, man. Don't
Mhm.
get me wrong. There's a whole lot of reasons why I use food,
Yeah.
and that's the part is we have to understand those angles of it. We need to know the person again. So again the Massapequa. We'll pick on my hometown, right? It was the oxycodone. It was
Mhm.
because I have a bad back. Whatever reason, whatever led you to it. That's what happens, and we got to understand the human side of it because the
Mhm.
human side is really actually where we can then say, "Oh, I've gone through that." That's why when I talk about mental wellness, I say, "Hey, you're all there. Have you ever yelled at your spouse, kids, somebody cut you off?" Yes. If you say yes to that, it's a mental wellness issue. It doesn't mean that you're now going to do anything because they only look at the Hollywood versions of,
Yes.
of all of that stuff.
Unfortunately, you're right. And that why question and where this becomes so pronounced in the sober method is in that then the S step, the O step, being able to reflect on yourself. Why are you doing the things that you're doing? One of the most famous quotes that comes from kind of a stoic, he's more of a practitioner of stoicism, is Marcus Aurelius. And the reason that I like Marcus Aurelius the most whenever I talk about any of the Stoic or the Stoic practitioners is because here's a man who was the most powerful man on earth at the time that he was writing, and he is being hard on himself and
Mm,
questioning his own abilities when he had ultimate power. Now think about that. Do you think that most of the leaders that we look at today ever stop for a minute and think about their own infallibilities? I kind of doubt it.
Yeah, I would doubt it, and that goes across the board. So yeah, no, well, you want to know, it's really hard. One of the things that I talk about is the monsters in our heads are worse than the monsters we imagined under our beds, because we don't want to do those deep dives. I mean, that's how when I was in therapy and I had to look at the deep dive. I didn't have to, right? I could have. There's a whole bunch of
Mhm.
easy things to do. I'm an adult. I could have done whatever I needed to do, but I chose to go dive into those monsters, and that's where we go in creating a support system. So that's my next question for you: is
Mhm.
how much is a support system? While you have to do it yourself, only you can control that. Well, how much is a support system so valuable in recovery and going forward?
It's the ultimate. You're not going to make it without a support system. If you don't have people that believe in what you are doing and where you're headed, you're not going to make it. You will crash and burn. And the reason is that we're human. We're a social animal, and we require that. We're very delicate when you're coming out of an event like this. You were very delicate, and the littlest thing will tip you right back into a relapse. I know, because in the very last throes of becoming sober, I went through 7 extremely hard relapses within a matter of a few weeks, and it was painful because every relapse went back into blackout drunk and then sobering up and saying, "Oh, you can't do that anymore," and then surviving 2 to 3 days and then doing it again. And that really showed me how I needed to shift who I was talking to, because the people who were involved and around me in that period where I was waking up were also bringing me down. They were not supportive of what I was trying to do. They were the ones still saying, come out and play pool with us." Oh, well, you know what that's going to lead to. Uh, I mean, now I could go and play pool and I wouldn't want to have a drink, but that took years of work. And it has to come from new people. Unless you already have a family member that's supportive or a friend that's supportive, like I was lucky enough to have, then you need to shop for somebody new and then form up a group that can get together. For me, I did something really unique, and I think it's really cool, is that I started a guys' night. And I brought in 4 other guys that were like friends of mine. A couple of them owned a company, and like I just got us together. And for me, it was for me, and they all knew that they couldn't. They would come over to my place. I'd make them dinner, and then we just sit around and play cards, and it was that monthly meeting together that really solidified, because then all those guys started talking to each other. And I can tell you, it's the most eclectic group in the world, because none of these people would have talked to each other had it not been for me. And now they're all great friends.
Well, that's great, being that confident. But well, I guess that leads me into my question on your second book, right? Flavors of Confidence.
Mm-hmm.
How do you start getting that right at the beginning of the sobriety journey? You're not. It's like crawling. It's walking. Maybe a baby step, but you eventually build that confidence. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what does that mean, and how would you suggest to people to kind of look at that part of the journey?
Yeah, so a flavor of confidence is literally finding your own unique grouping and set of skills that you feel confident, that that you own. Like, I am good at this, and then you stack it upon another skill until you frame up who you are. Because when you come out of being an addict, you're, again, like I just said, you're very fragile. I mean, like, suddenly you're sober and you don't really know who you are, because your identity for years most likely has been tied to your addiction, and the
Mm,
friends that you have are tied to the addiction, because that guy can hook me up with this, and this guy can hook me up with that, and this guy parties with me here. And so your entire identity is built around your addiction, and now you have to step out of that and realize, you know what, I'm really good at turning a wrench on cars.
mm,
That's good. I should maybe build some friends over here. That builds a little edge of your confidence. And like maybe you're really good at something else. I started I became a competitive figure skater of all things. And
Oh,
so
wow.
I
Okay.
so I mean and that led to other things like I'm treasurer of my figure skating club and I'm on US figure skating committee. So I've like taken that and framed it into the ultimate identity that has allowed me to have confidence in multiple areas and form new friends in areas of my life and from different walks of life that I never would have associated with before.
That's awesome. That is awesome. That's just it's crazy. Um, as we're getting closer to the end of the episode, I always have everybody walk into the magic garden and plant a seed. Now, you've given us a lot of information, but is there one more seed, or more than one seed, right? That you'd love to share with us right now?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing for anyone listening right now, if you're struggling at all, is I just want you to go and walk into the bathroom right now and look at yourself in the mirror. And I want you to tell yourself that you're enough, that
Mm,
you have the power within you, that all of us have the strength and the energy to turn yourself around. But it starts with that first step, and that first step has to come with from within. And it starts because you tell yourself that you're capable of great things. So many of us are down on ourselves, but that really can be that first and changing step is believing that you have the power. And I can tell you from my own experience, and I'm sure Dave will back me up himself, is that the power to be great comes from within. It doesn't come from the outside, it comes from
100%.
within. And if you believe it, you will deliver on that. You just have to keep telling yourself that.
Yeah, just figure it out, right? Again, when you started the journey, or any journey, it doesn't have to be sobriety, but any journey, you have to figure it out. You don't know the things you don't know, but you're allowed to learn, and that's one of the things that have definitely helped me throughout the years.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really powerful. Like the first step of any journey is unknown.
Yep.
I liken the taking any step in life too, and is that how are you able to take a step? Think about how babies walk. When they're first walking, they're kind of looking down at the floor, and then of course they topple over. And as they begin to realize, and what's actually happening is like they reach a point where they believe that the floor is there.
Right.
Once you know that it is safe to take that step, then they're looking up. And that's when they start bobbling around and side to side and they're going someplace. Because, and it's the same way for me on the ice. Every time coach says, well, you know why you just fell? And I'm like, yeah, I was looking down. He goes, the ice is always going to be there to meet you. So, and it's true. And it's a very good perspective of what life is like. Your first steps are going to be wobbly. You're going to fall. You're going to stumble a little bit, but if you have people around you, they're going to help you back up. And then you start taking those first steps. And as you take each successive step, you gain that greater confidence that you know that you can do it because you've proven you've already taken those first steps.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. How can everybody find you and your books?
Oh, yes. So I'm at sobermethod.com. I'm on all socials at sobermethod. I do answer anybody who sends a private message. I still do that personally myself. I think it's really important to be there and
Mhm.
available. It may take me a couple days, but I assure you, the person that answers you is in fact me. My books, all three of them, are available at Amazon or anywhere books are sold, or you can get direct links to those at sobermethod.com. And I just want to say, Dave, I really appreciate you giving me an opportunity to talk with you today. It's been a blast. Thank you.
And thank you so much as well. Just the connection and really appreciate it. And anytime you want to come on back, definitely want to help support you. And this was a great time. Thank you so much. And for everybody else, I hope that was good good for them as well. But I'm sure it was. You guys could hear the energy that Massimo and I both had, and the passion, and it's all possible. So I don't care what your addiction is, anger, mental health issues. It's all possible to get through. I just want to make sure that's known. There's people who can out there who can help you, assist you, and always community is important. And then we'll leave you with peace and love in your life. I want you to have that as your foundation. Make sure that you're able to find that within yourself. And when you're able to find that within yourself, you'll be able to hear some more of these awesome thoughts. And that's what I want for you to hit your sweet spot. Thanks so much.